Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this session, InstaClass by Amity. And today we will be talking about 5 eternal investments that we will all have to make. Now, before we make the eternal investments, I want all of us to take one step backward. The challenge or the problem with many of us is we want to add or we want to invest in our life without taking away certain things which could be a derailer or which could kill our entire initiative. So, what are the three things? The first thing, 135 is the pattern of my presentation. The first one is we need to change our attitude and we need to change our perspective. Because if you don't change your attitude, then that investment will not give us the proper return. The second thing that we'll have to do is we will have to learn to give up to go up. What are the three things you must give up to go up? Or what are the three exchanges that you must have before I even come to the investment? Three exchanges that we need to have in our life. First one, I need to exchange affirmation for accomplishment. The challenge with many of us, or the temptation for many of us, is we look for accomplishment in our lives. Now, accomplishments may or may not come, and even if it comes, it may be short term. But what we need to look up for, make sure that we need to achieve these accomplishments on a longer period of time. And look at accomplishment not in the near term, or not look at affirmation in the near term where you are expecting people to give you a pat on the back. The second exchange that we will have to do in our life is we will have to give up security for the sake of significance. The challenge that many of us face is when we give up our position, when we give up our title, when we give up our knowledge, we think we have lost our crown jewels. But the moment you give up your security for the sake of significance, where you're looking for not job security or information security, a lot of people, they possess information and they keep that as a closely guarded secret because they fear that if they give up that information, they will lose their security. But if you are confident, if you are inner secure, you will look for significance in life and you will give up the temporary security. The third one we will have to give up is immediate victory for the sake of long-term sustainability. And in the today's instant generation, everybody is looking at immediate victory, immediate returns, immediate fallout. We have to learn to give up that for the sake of long-term sustainability. So let me summarize the three things that we'll have to exchange before I get into the investment. I need to learn to give up affirmation, looking for people to affirm me for the sake of accomplishment. Give up affirmation for accomplishment. The second one is learn to give up security for the sake of significance. There may be certain information that I possess. There may be certain title that I may possess. And I had to go through it the hard way. I held a very high position in the corporate world. I was the senior executive vice president for India's largest private sector organization. And at that point in time, the title was a big thing that I kind of held on to. In one sense, that was my security, but I had to give up that to make significant difference and take on significant projects. Give up security for the sake of significance. And also, when you live and work in the corporate world, you are as good as your last quarter. You are as good as your last achievement. But as you move on in life, we need to learn to give up that immediate victory for the sake of long-term sustainability. Having said that, let us now get into the 5 areas where we need to invest in ourselves. Those 5 areas are beautifully summarized in the acronym SPICE, SPICE. ICE. What are those 5 areas that we need to invest in ourselves? S, the first one is spiritual. Now, I am not talking about your religion. I am not talking about your faith. I am talking about your value system, your internal values, your code of ethics. In fact, there are a lot of behavioral scientists and management gurus who are now saying there used to be a time when people were evaluated based on their IQ, and then they moved on to EQ or emotional quotient, and I will come to that in a little while. But the high on priority is a particular person's spiritual quotient. You are what you do because of who you are internally. There's a beautiful verse in the Bible which says, be careful of what you think or what is there in your mind, because out of it are the issues of life. It is what you are internally that manifests itself externally. Long ago, me and my sister, we used to fight like tooth and nail. We used to go crazy on each other. And at that point in time, I got upset with my sister because she hit me on the head. I must have been about 4 or 5 years old, and there was a lump on the head, and I really could not even comb my hair. So when she was sleeping and she had really long hair, and I cut off her hair, and she started crying profusely. Obviously, my father had to intervene in the fight between me and my sister. And then he asked me, why did you hit her? And I told I hit her because she hit me, or I cut her hair because she hit me on the head. And then she asked he asked my sister, why did you hit him? And she said, because he passed a remark, and so on. We were all tit for tat. And finally, my father, he took a tumbler, a silver tumbler, and then he asked us, what is there in this? Normally, we would drink water in that. And so I said, water. He said, no. And then afterwards, he asked me, what is there? Think again. We thought it is milk or badam milk. He said, no. And then we gave 2 or 3 other options, coffee or tea, which we never did in that. But nevertheless, to give an option, we said that is what is there in the tumbler. And finally, what he did was he tilted it. And as he tilted it, I was surprised, and both me and my sister was surprised what came out of it. He had poured, or he had stored kerosene in it, and kerosene came out of that silver tumbler. And at that point in time, he made a powerful statement which took years for me to understand. And that is, you will spill out what you have been filled with when you are tilted. Let me say that once again. You will spill out what you have been filled with when you are tilted. And life offers those tilting moments, and you will spill out what you have been filled with. If your inner self is filled, if your inner self is full of evil thoughts and evil desires, that is what you will come out with. Your value systems, you will have to renew. You will have to invest in your value systems. At one point in time, you may think that this is good or bad, but later on, you will know that that is not. Renew yourself or invest in your spiritual self, inner. S. P. Physical self. We need to learn to invest in our physical self. Again, the good book says the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Beware of what you eat, how you take care of yourself. Learn to exercise, renew or invest in your physical self. Because the body is what contains the heart, mind, and soul. And the body is very, very important. A large number of us neglect our body. We don't invest in our physical self, so much so that as we grow older, while we may be otherwise active, we are physically unavailable, and therefore you're rendered ineffective. SP, you must invest in your spiritual self, you must invest in your physical self, take care of your body. The third one is SPI, you must invest in your intellectual self. Intellectual self. What is your intellectual self? Renew your mind. A large number of students, they stop studying after they finish their graduation. But in the school of life, you never stop studying. You must develop that habit of lifelong learning. Because the challenge that we have is no academic degree, including law and medicine, depends entirely on the course. You need to have your practice. You need to learn to keep on learning. Become a friend of Professor Google. Learn to learn. Have that spirit of lifelong learning. So SPI, spiritual, physical, intellectual. C, learn to invest in the community. The challenge or the problem with many of us, particularly those of us who are economically well off, we forget to be in touch with the community. Learn to be in touch with the community. Irrespective of whichever strata of life you are in, be in touch with the community. Learn to serve the community. Learn to learn from the community. Learn to interact with the community. Don't become emotionally and physically and even socially isolated. So you must invest in the community. Give back to the society. SPICE. E is emotional quotient. Learn to invest in your emotional quotient, which is the fifth one. The first one is your spiritual quotient, your emotional quotient. Daniel Goleman summarized it, emotional quotient, as what it is that you do when you react or your response to the situations around you. In fact, he said it is your response to pain and pleasure that determines your emotional quotient. Emotional quotient, another way of looking at it, is how do you respond or react when you have everything? And how do you respond or react when you have nothing? Let me say that once again. How do you respond when you have everything, and how do you react when you have nothing? That determines your emotional quotient. I'll end with a short story which goes, or an incident. A boy was picked up by his mother from school. And as the boy was picked up by his mother from school, the mother was driving him in her car, and the boy was sitting next to her. And as they were coming home, the boy asked the mother a question: Mummy, how come idiots appear on the road only when daddy is driving? Now, the boy made certain observations when the father was driving the same route, and in that same route, as people crossed or did whatever, he did not speak Hindi, English, or Punjabi. He spoke special characters, and the boy noticed that. And when the mother was driving the same route, the boy asked a very genuine question: Mummy, how come idiots appear on the road when daddy is driving? Well, idiots don't appear on the road. The people appear as idiots, and we blurt out our inner self there. As I conclude, let us learn to have spice in our life. SPICE. And the only way we can have spice in our life is if we invest in these 5 areas: our spiritual quotient, our physical self, our intellectual self, our community, and our emotional self. Thank you.